So we're continuing a sermon series we started a few weeks back, and we had a break in it because remember Claire was in here last week preaching on salt to you all, and I'm sure you heard a beautiful message. But to just kind of recap where we are so we don't lose the pieces that we already learned with the sermon series, I'll do a quick overview. The first week of the sermon series, we asked ourselves the question, am I following Jesus? And we laid out 4 stages of following Jesus. So here's the big test. Who remembers what stage 1 is?
Listen.
Sit and listen. That's stage 1. Stage 2? Loan a boat to Jesus. Right, that's stage 2. Stage 3? Go fishing with Jesus. Close enough. Go fishing with Jesus. And stage 4? Let go of the safety nets. Get rid of it. That's right. And so the following week we asked the question, what is the end game? And what we realize is that's not really the question we should be asking. The question we should be asking is, who do you put your confidence in? Because it's all about putting your confidence and your trust into God, right? And so we learned that when we put our confidence in God, we have a faith in God that overwhelms fear. Fear can tear everything apart. With a faith, a confidence in God, we have a faith that overwhelms fear. And so this week, we're asking ourselves the question, what should Jesus' followers wear? What should Jesus' followers wear? So let's talk about follow wear for just a second, okay? So bear with me and laugh. Who are these folks? Who are they? Ray-Ban fans, okay? So why do you know they're Ray-Ban fans? Because they're covered in purple, right? I guess it was Ray-Ban fans too. Okay, so who are these folks? And why do we know who they are? Because they dress up like pigs, right? Alright. Okay. So who's this? Oriole. Why do we know? Because it's the Oriole bird, right? Dressed in a costume, right? Right. So in our world, we have follow wear. Ravens, the Redskins, Alabama. I didn't put a picture in there. But Oriole fans, you name your team, you're a follower, and you can usually tell, right? If you follow fish, Marty, what's follow wear for fishermen look like?
Flip-flops and shorts.
So there's follow wear for all aspects of our life. So there's also follow wear for Christians, right? No doubt they're Christians, right? They're monks of some kind. I honestly don't know the order or anything like that, but they're monks. They're obviously Christians. They're very distinct religious garb, right? What about these? T-shirts. We saw a lot of these last week in Ocean City. Nothing is impossible with God. I took a DNA test, and God is my Father. The amazing grace is lost, now found. Faith book. Jesus wants to be your friend. Follow it, right? So we see it all over the place. Okay? We see it. We see it. Look around. I see crosses all over you folks. You're wearing your follow wear. That's part of your follow wear. Okay? Now we have extremes in our follow wear, right? We have on the extreme left the gentleman with the red, white, with the rainbow wig and the John 3:16 on his shirt, and on the other side we have the other extreme of God hates you because. Okay, follow it. Tells a story of who we are by what we wear. Simple. So what does Jesus say about follow wear? Now let me give you a hint. Nowhere in the gospel does it say wear t-shirts with cliche phrases on it. Nowhere. Nowhere in the gospel does it say wear crosses around your neck. Not that it's wrong, not that we shouldn't, but it doesn't say that. What does it say? Is the question we're going to wrestle this morning. What does Jesus say about what we should clothe ourselves with? We're going to do that by looking at the Gospel of John and also looking at Colossians, the letter that Paul wrote, and looking what follow wear for a Christian might look like. So we start with the Gospel of John. It's in chapter 13. Jesus has had his last meal with his disciples. He's broken bread with his disciples. He's washed their feet. So he's taught them all about servant leadership and what that means and what that looks like. Judas has begun his betrayal. He's left the room. And who remains are Jesus and his closest disciples. And he's sharing with them. These are his final teaching moments with his disciples. And the first thing he says is something we're all very familiar with. He says, I give you a new commandment. Love each other. Love each other, he says. Just as I have loved you. Now, he sets a standard here, right? It's not just go out and love each other, but you need to love each other in the way I have loved you. These disciples have walked with him for 3 years. They've watched him, they've listened to him, he's taught, he's shown by example what it looks like to love one another. And now he's asking his disciples to love each other just as Jesus had loved them. Okay? In our world, it's important that we break this down, because in our world, we think about love and we think about this emotion and this feeling that we go through, this gooey, mushy thing, and all that kind of stuff, right? But that's not what Jesus is talking about. That's not the kind of love that Jesus is talking about. Jesus is talking about a love that is an action word. It's something we do. It's not a feeling inside. It's something we do with our lives. And he's modeled it for the disciples for 3 years of what love looks like. And you all know, they still haven't got it right at this point in time. They're still confused on this idea of what love is. But Jesus is very clear. You must go and do as I have done. You must love one another as I have loved you. This is how everyone will know that you are my disciples. So he's told them, go and love each other. And now he's telling them, this is how you can show the world that you are followers of Jesus Christ. By the way you love one another. When you love each other, the world will know, without a doubt, that you are my disciples. And remember, this is not the feeling of love. This is actually physically doing something, being something, completely being changed from the inside out of who you are. This is what Jesus is talking about. He's talking about building relationships. This is how everyone will know that you are my followers, when you build relationships with each other. In essence, that's at the core of what Jesus is telling his disciples on this faithful night. On his last night, his last instructions to them are to go out and build relationships with one another. Show each other. Demonstrate love in this world. And that's the lesson he's teaching us. And then Simon Peter said to Jesus, Lord, where are you going? I love Simon Peter. I think he's probably my favorite disciple, because he comes off as the most clueless. Could I say that right? The most clueless of all of them. He never seems to quite get it. Right? Jesus has just bared his soul to the disciples. You are to love one another as I have loved you. But where are we going? I'm ready to go. In other words, Simon Peter wants to know what the next rules are. I want to follow the next rule. What's the next step in the process? What's the next box that I need to check to move on? So here's the thing. The gravitational pull of religion, all the way back to Peter, is toward rule-keeping rather than relationship building. And ask yourself the question, why rule-keeping? Why is that statement true? Quite simply, rule-keeping is easier than loving one another. Rule-keeping is a matter of checking boxes. Went to worship this morning? Got it. Got to be baptized? I'm not thinking of it. Got to be baptized? Check mark. Sang in the choir this morning? Check mark. I prayed before I went to bed tonight? Check mark. I said grace before my meal this morning? Check mark. And it puts us in control when we're rule keepers. Because now, when I do wrong, all right, God, you got to forgive me on this one. And then you go the next day and you do it again. Well, God, I'm still doing wrong. You need to forgive me again. God, and it becomes about me. It no longer is about God, but it is about me minding the rules. And that is not what Jesus talked about. What does Jesus say about rule keeping? Actually, nothing. Jesus doesn't say anything about rule keeping. Matter of fact, when we look at Jesus as an example, he's a rule breaker all over the place. You know that song, Chain Breaker? I think it actually had rule breaker in it, wasn't it? But we're not just thinking chain breaker? Okay. I scrolled, sorry. But Jesus calls Matthew as a disciple. This is one of the best examples I have. He calls Matthew as a disciple. Matthew is a tax collector. Matthew is hated by the Jews because he oppresses the Jews. And he's a Jew himself. There is no way, by any rule that exists for religion, that Matthew should have been a disciple. And yet, that's one of the disciples whom Jesus calls. He calls Matthew. And he says to Matthew, put me first in everything. Follow me. And when we do that, when we let go of those rules that the traditions say we should do or anything else, and we just love, it changes everything around us. It changes everything about who we are. Build relationships the way Jesus built a relationship with you. That's the message of the gospel. That's what Jesus wants. He wants you to build a relationship in the exact same way that he built one with you. And there's no mistaking what that relationship is. It's built on love. Mary Beth's prayers this morning were beautiful. She was talking about the love that Jesus gave to us in his life. Resurrection. God sent his only son for us. This is what real love looks like. This is what servant love looks like. And that is who we are called to be. When rule keeping replaces relationship building, we have a problem. The church has a problem. Because that is not the gospel of Jesus Christ. The gospel of Jesus Christ is the gospel of love that changes the world around it. So what should Jesus' followers wear? Well, it's simple. Love each other. That is what Jesus commands us to do. I give you a new commandment. And so I look around this room and I see confused faces. Right? So we wrestle with love. You guys hear me say that every Sunday. Probably get tired of hearing it sometimes. But that is the core message of Jesus Christ is love. So because of what the world has done with love versus what Jesus tried to do with love, we get confused by it. We want to make it this mushy-gushy feeling thing, and that's not what was intended. Love is an action word in Scripture. It's about doing. It's not about feeling. It's about doing. And so Paul comes along. Paul sends a letter to the church in Colossians and tries to help them better understand what this whole great commandment of love each other means. And he puts it in a different set of terms for us. So he shows up and he says, therefore, as God's choice, holy and loved, so you are God's choice, holy and loved, put on, clothe yourself in the following. He says to put on compassion. You should be defined by compassion in your life. And compassion is quite simply to feel, to know what the other person is feeling. We have to take time to do that. We have to get out of our own way and actually connect, build a relationship with someone in order to understand what they're feeling and put ourselves aside. He says, put on kindness. And kindness simply means to loan your strength. To loan your strength. To help build someone up. You have gifts and talents. Loan them to someone. Don't make it all about you, but make it about somebody else. To put on humility. To see oneself in relationship to others accurately. And we get confused here because we want to come at someone with our strength. That's what kindness says, but we want to come at someone with our strength with more of a authoritarian approach rather than coming down on that person's level and saying, how are you doing? And it makes a difference. And you have to understand accurately how you relate with one another. He says to put on gentleness, which simply means to respond in kind, not out of your strength. An example I just did with Richard is the same thing. It's not, I want to help you and I'm going to do everything I can. It's, how are you doing today? You doing good? How's how you doing? He's good? All right. It's a connection. It's not, this is what what I'm going to do for you today. It's, how can I help you today? What can I do for you? What do you need? And that's what relationship building is all about. It's about connecting on a different level. And he says, put on patience. I don't know about you all, but I'm not very good at this one. I don't tend to be a very patient person. So and the world, that's the way the world treats us, right? Get this done today, get that done tomorrow. Come on, move. You know, say Phil today, say Christian tomorrow, and say Scott the next day. You know? And that's what our faith wants us, that's what the world says it should be about, right? But patience is to match the speed of the other person. Patience says we slow down. We let go of the busyness of the world. And we connect with each other with humility. We build a relationship. He goes on to say, be tolerant with each other. And if someone has a complaint against everyone, forgive each other. As the Lord forgave you, so also forgive each other. Forgiveness becomes one of the traits that we hang on to. You've been forgiven for a lifetime. Why wouldn't you offer that to someone else? And finally, and over all these things, put on love, which is the perfect bond of relationship building. This is the message of Jesus. This is the message of Paul. This is the message of Scripture. Our follower should look like this. People will look at you. They should see compassion in you. They should see kindness in you. They should see humility and gentleness in you. They should see patience and forgiveness in you. And overall, and above all, they should see love in you. This is who Christ desires us to be. This is what he means when he says, put on love for one another. Build relationships with one another. And notice that all of these words, our follower is defined by our relationship with each other, by our ability to build relationships with each other. If we can't build relationships with each other, all we're doing is tearing down Christ's work. We are called to build Christ's work up. And it is through putting on our follower that happens in this world. Therefore, it's God's choice. And you are God's choice. Holy in love, put on compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience, forgiveness, and above all, love. And I think it comes down to a choice that you have. You can choose to make a point, or you can choose to make a difference. We can choose to make a point. Our extreme left work, our extreme right work, or even our middle work, or we can choose to make a difference in the world. And we do that by the difference is made when people sense real compassion, when people sense kindness, when people sense humility, when people sense gentleness, when people sense patience, when people sense forgiveness, and above all, when people sense love in us. That's how we make a difference in this world. That's how this world is changed for the better. So the question I leave you with this morning is, what are you wearing? Are you fully clothed in love? Are you partially clothed in love? Do you find yourself naked today, standing out in not such a good way? Only you can answer that question. Only you know who your heart is. God calls us to this life. God wants us to be defined by these words, by compassion, by kindness, by gentleness, by humility, by patience, by forgiveness, and by love for one another. This is who we should be as Christians. When we talk about our follower, that's what our follower should look like. In such a way that when other people look at us, we reflect Jesus. That's the ultimate goal in our lives, is that we will reflect Jesus. And we can choose to do that or choose not to. God calls us to reflect Jesus. Amen?
Amen.
Amen.